What's up, everybody? Couch Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video, and we're gonna be finally breaking down patch 2.02, and this is a good one. We're finally getting some rank changes and some rifle running and gunning changes. It's about freaking time. So we're gonna break all that down, but make sure to go to the GameLeap website in the links down below to get all the in-depth advanced mechanical guides. For those of you who are gonna be struggling after these movement patches, you might need to hone your fundamentals, and we have tons of advanced guides for you on the GameLeap website, so check them out in the links down below. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, we talked in the past about running and gunning, how big of a problem it has been when you can basically be fairly accurate from those mid to close ranges if you're running and gunning, not only creating these scenarios where someone who is just playing bad wins a matchup, but also allowing people to climb when they never learned the fundamentals, like counter-strafing, for instance. And this was a problem with all of the rifles, but specifically the Phantom was the worst one, followed by the Vandal. But we actually got rifle movement accuracy changes for all four of the rifles: the Bulldog, the Guardian, the Phantom, and the Vandal. But let's talk about what they specifically said and the changes, and then we're going to talk about what that means for you. So they stated this: we significantly increased the amount of air that all rifles get when moving and shooting to help combat the sensation of running kills with rifles. These changes will make kills while moving with rifles more rare, especially at longer ranges, but still possible up close. We'll be monitoring this situation closely and will continue to fine-tune as necessary. So let's talk about what the actual changes are, what they mean, and how big of a change are they. So first, the running air across all rifles increased from 3.75 to 5, an increase of 1.25. The walking error across all rifles got increased from 0.8 to 1.1, and the crouch moving error increased from all rifles to 0.3 to 0.8. Now, forget about the numbers, because the numbers honestly don't matter. They're arbitrary up to the system, and it doesn't really matter what the numbers are. We just need to know how much they're relatively getting increased by. And I want to talk about two important changes here. First, the running error and the walking error. So as far as the running error, it makes it a little bit less than 50% more punishing to actually run and gun. This means that your bullets are going to go a lot further, and when you're running and gunning, those mid-range shots are going to hit very infrequently and almost never be headshots unless the freaking RNG GameLeap gods are in your favor. Now, what this means for you is that counter-strafing is going to be very important. It's going to be something that a lot of people are going to have to learn for the first time because they have been abusing running and gunning. And also, when you're from that mid-ranges, it's a lot better, honestly, for you to stand still or counter-strafe rather than just try to run and gun across someone's screen, because there's going to be a lot of situations where before you would have got that kill, and now you're gonna get beat out by maybe even, you know, a pistol. Someone standing still is gonna win that matchup over you running it, and it's just gonna be not worth it to try to just run and gun every single time. That being said, there are gonna be some scenarios where if an enemy is very close, or you're running and pushing an enemy when they're reloading, or you're like literally, you know, gun to body, of course you can run and gun there. It doesn't matter how inaccurate your gun is if your gun is right on top of them and maybe they're one shot. But for the most part, this is a really big change in itself, and I'm really excited about this one. But the next one's also important: the walking error across all rifles. That being increased, it didn't get increased by quite as much, only 0.3, which is a little bit less than half. It's actually quite a bit less than half. But the thing that really matters about this is walk shooting is going to be something that is a lot worse than it was before. Now, this never really affected people at the higher ranks because they really mastered counter-strafing, but in a lot of the lower ranks, people didn't counter-strafe all that well, and instead, they were opting to just hold shift while they shot. And while that did make them lose that first shot accuracy, it made them accurate enough to where they could still win gunfights against people who weren't using fundamentals as well. And that was a crutch for a lot of people that is simply not going to work that well anymore. On top of this, walk peeking angles is going to be quite a bit worse than before, and honestly, running and peeking with a solid counter strafe is probably going to be better than walk peeking like every single time now. And overall, I don't think that the crouch moving error matters quite as much as these other errors, even though it does dramatically make it so if you're moving while crouching, you just can't hit anything, which I hope most of you weren't already doing that in the first place. But realistically, this is just gonna make it far more brutal for anyone who was abusing running and gunning, period. You haven't learned counter strafing, you gotta learn counter strafing. strafing. You have some of these bad habits where you're constantly pressing your walk key when you're firing, and you're gonna really see it. You're gonna see how inaccurate you're gonna be when you're running and how inaccurate you're gonna be when you're walking, and I think that this is overall gonna be a really good change. Now, that being said, a lot of players are going to struggle with this right off the bat. You might think that you should have killed someone that you're not gonna kill, and it might be frustrating, but for those of you who really wanna get the leg up on your competition and master this as quickly as possible, what I would highly suggest you do is turn on that movement and accuracy. That is actually a setting you could put in your crosshair so that you see just how inaccurate you are based on how you're moving and when you're moving, and this is gonna better help you understand just how inaccurate you are at doing certain things and how and when you're counter strafing correctly. So that's something that I would highly suggest to better get used to this rifle movement accuracy update. Now, the interesting as well here is that they changed the Bulldog and the Guardian, which were guns that I didn't really think people were running and gunning with that much anyways, because they were not very effective at running and gunning with, and that's just gonna basically not change very much on these weapons at all, in my personal opinion. But something it will change is the matchup between rifles and SMGs. SMGs, especially the Stinger and the Spectre, are still amazing running and gunning weapons, and I'm pretty surprised we didn't see any changes here. This might really shift the power level right now, especially at the lower ranks, talking about those SMGs, and I'm interested if it's gonna stay that way for long, because even in the pro meta, people are forcing all the time because of the power level, especially of the Spectre, and I would be interested if after these changes, we see a decrease in power level of some of those SMGs down to a suitable level, because technically, this is a pretty sizable nerf all along, pretty much all the rifles, but more so the Phantom and the Vandal than the Guardian and the Bulldog. But as usual, I really want to know your opinion about this. Do you like it, dislike it? Are you glad? Or do you feel like there's going to be some big growing pains? I want to know all your opinions about it in the comments down below. Now, the next thing that we got to talk about are the big ranked changes and future rank changes that also got announced here. So in the patch 2.02 changes, first we got an MMR to rank convergence increase. Now, I'm going to read what they said here, and then we're going to talk about it like usual. So convergence is the multiplier that gives you more or less ranked rating, RR, if your MMR is not equal to your rank. Convergence exists to push your rank to match your MMR, but we believe it wasn't pushing you fast enough. Now, that being said, after this change, most of you will see an increase in your rank rating increase if it's below your MMR. You will also see less RR losses per loss as well. Lowering the amount of RR you lose per loss will make it so that you'll have to play less games to get to the rank you deserve, while still giving us a few matches to test and make sure you belong in that rank. So if you have a much higher act rank, you're gonna boost there a lot quicker, and you're gonna do it with less games. Even if you like win 5 and lose 5, it's still going to boost you a lot more in those 5 wins, and it's gonna decrease less for those 5 losses. So eventually you'll end up where you belong, as long as you don't just completely shit the bed and it down mid every single time. Now, they said that overall this should allow you to feel less hard stuck if you're getting matched into higher skill games than your actual rank. Those of you with exceptionally good individual performance in games where your team wins decisively will see close to 50 ranked rating per win, which is freaking crazy. You're gonna juice right out of wherever you're quote unquote hard stuck at. Now, this alone is absolutely fantastic for pretty much everyone. Low rank players, all these high rank players that are in your game are just gonna get the freak out of your rank, and that's gonna be great. And all you high rank players that feel like you can't climb because you keep going up against high rank players, even though your actual rank is lower, that is not gonna happen anymore, and you're gonna juice out of your rank too. And this is hopefully gonna fix the system, and then eventually everything will be stable. But this is not the only change they did. Now, Diamond 3 is now only solo duo. So before it was Immortal, but now it's all the way down to Diamond 3. Now, they said this about this change: we want to make sure that you can't 5-stack all the way to the leaderboard, as well as reduce the amount of Immortal Radiant 5-stacks you may encounter. This change, along with the convergence changes, reduces the total number of games that 5-stacks can play together before being forced to solo duo. The secondary goal of this change was to create a buffer to the leaderboards so we can build confidence that when you get Immortal, you've truly earned it. And I think most people can really agree with this. It's just putting a little bit of buffer between the 5-stack cutoff and then immediately jumping into Immortal. And they don't want like all these Immortal players and Radiant players run into these 5 stacks. It's just probably a pretty good change overall, and I'm interested if they're gonna decrease this down to maybe Diamond 2, to maybe Diamond 1. I don't know when the actual best cutoff is. I'm interested to know your opinion about that in the comments down below. Now, the next thing is actually a really interesting change, and this is a performance bonus for Iron to Diamond. Now, let's read what they say here. Exceptional matchmaking performance should be rewarded differently than your average performance. Right now, the matchmaker has an idea of how well you should perform whenever it puts you in a match. When you go above that expectation, above average, extra RR is your reward. This is to incentivize playing well, but to get you to stop comparing yourself to your teammates. The goal of ranked is to maintain a healthy competitive queue where you all feel like you can challenge yourself to improve. As a secondary goal, this will also help push Smurfs or players who may see significant skill improvement to higher ranks quicker. And I think a lot of people, especially pretty much everyone from Iron to Diamond, is gonna love this change. It's just gonna get Smurfs out of there. It's gonna reward you when you keep popping off, getting MVP, and you're barely winning any, and then you lose even though you're popping off. It's just gonna be a lot better for you. I think a lot of people can agree that this is going to be a pretty good change, as long as what happened in Overwatch doesn't happen here. And for those of you who don't know, they had a system like this in place, and then sometimes people would go on like these really sick win streaks where they performed pretty well, and they would get boosted to a really high rank out of nowhere, and then they would, you know, be completely not deserving of that rank and would throw a whole bunch of games back down. I'm hoping that the balance is in order here, and I'm trusting Riot to actually have done this correctly, but we're gonna have to wait and see on that one to know for sure. But let's talk about the 2.03 plans. These are some interesting plans that they are actually going to be adding in, and episode 2 act plans altogether. A lot of really important stuff to cover, so let's go through it as quickly as possible. Now, basically, the first big plans for patch 2.03 is now you're going to get rewards based on the end of act leaderboard standings or highest ranked achieved, not your Dorito anymore. Now, if you still want to fill up your Dorito, you still need those 9 wins. But if you don't get those 9 wins, you're still gonna get the rewards. Whatever that reward is, maybe it's gonna be a gun buddy again, maybe it's gonna be something else. Whatever reward that they're gonna give you, it's gonna be based on the highest rank you achieved or your leaderboard standings. And basically, this just means if you barely touch something like Plat and that's it, and then you like D-rank right out of it, you're still gonna get the rewards for Plat. So a lot of you, this is going to be exciting to you. There is not a need for you to fill out that Dorito, but of course it's not going to be on your icon. You need to fill out the Dorito if you want it on that icon, but you're still going to get the rewards. So at least there's less of those feel bad moments where you get like 8 out of the 9 necessary wins. But let's talk about leaderboards, another thing they're going to change. But apparently if you climb all the way up to the leaderboards, the immortal leaderboards, you're actually going to get rewarded based on your standing, and they're going to give special awards most likely based on what they said here to people that are like in the Radiant rank or like the top 5, top 10, and every single person in Immortal is going to get special rewards as well. So this is actually really interesting. They're not revealing what those rewards are, but it's pretty exciting to see what they come up with to give to the highest ranked players in the game. Now let's talk about the penalties for in-game AFKing. This is another thing that they're working on for patch 2.03. So first they start off saying that AFK teammates usually ruin ranks and you lose rank rating and you don't deserve it. So they say this: the first step is for them to penalize ranked players who AFK in-game. Players who AFK in-game will lose additional ranked rating, which can go above our maximum caps. This is the first step to help combat AFK players. We have more things in the works and hopefully can talk about them in a later update. So basically, they didn't really give us much here about what they plan to do, but if the actual maximum cap, I mean, right now it's 30, that's the maximum you can lose, but maybe you could lose 50 or 100. Imagine going down an entire freaking rank because you AFK, and that is really scary, especially if you DC because of your internet. But if it's someone that is intentionally doing it or they're a repeat offender, I don't care how much freaking rank they lose. I mean, if they deserve it, maybe it will disincentivize them for actually doing this. But I really want to know your opinion. Do you think that this is going to have unintended consequences? Are you excited for this prospect? I want to know your opinion about that. But let's talk about the last big thing about rank we have to talk about, which is the episode 2 act 2 plans. So basically for the future, they're going to make it so act-to-act resets will be less punishing, making it easier for players to maintain their rank from act to act, unlike episode soft resets. And basically you're not going to move much rank between act to act. And the reason they do this is they want people to have faith in the rank system to be accurate. They don't want this entire big debacle again. And basically for everyone from Iron through Diamond, you're not going to be affected that much from act to act resets, but the leaderboards are something different, and because they want people to earn their leaderboard spot again, every player on the leaderboard is going to see a 10% reduction of their ranked rating. This will allow people to re-fight for the ranked leaderboard and give everyone a fair shot at getting to the top, according to Riot. The next big thing that they're planning on doing is they're protecting the prestige of earning their Radiant rank, which all that means is there's going to be a certain amount of time after an act starts before the Radiant rank opens up. You can't get it right away. You're going to have to wait for a substantial amount of time so everyone gets their games in, and then they're going to award it to everyone that's in the top, and then it will be like a fight for Radiant. On top of that, the next thing that they're going to be doing is the targeted hiding of your rank in pre-game and in-game. So basically, they've heard from a lot of us that some of us would prefer to hide our rank and not show it in that pre-game and in-game because it can lead to an increased amount of unhealthy pressure from other players. Maybe you're the top ranked player and other players expect you to play a certain way, and for whatever reason you mess up and then they flame you, or you're a low ranked player and your main is whatever, a duelist or whatever, and people flame you and say get off that or whatever. So what they basically allow you to do is now if you want to, you're going to be able to hide. Once this patch goes through, you're going to be able to hide your pre and in-game rank. It's still going to show at the end of the game, but you will not see it in the early game if people want to hide it. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this one, but I can understand that toxicity can be selectively targeted at people that have certain ranks, but this is one I really want to ask the community. Do you like or dislike this specific thing? Let me know why in the comments down below. Now, the last thing that they touched on as far as the rank system is they plan to create maybe more relaxed group restrictions at lower ranks. So maybe at the higher ranks, or maybe like in Plat and Diamond, there is only like a 3 rank disparity that you can have. But if you're talking about like Bronze and Silver, maybe there's going to be a 5 or 6 or 7. They haven't really clarified yet, but that's kind of what they're talking about. And that's most likely going to be somewhere down the line for this episode. So look forward to that. But going back to the original patch notes for this patch, there's a lot of different bug fixes and things that I'm not going to get into. But there was one thing that I wanted to talk about. Praise the GameLeap gods, because it is at the very end of the patch notes and it says this: reduced brightness on initial visuals when blinded from flashes. I can freaking see again. Smash a like and subscribe if that doesn't excite you at the very least. I mean, oh my god, this is an amazing patch. I'm so excited for this patch and the future changes. But let me know about your spicy takes about all this in the comments down below. And go to the GameLeap website for in-depth mechanical mastery. I know some of you might be struggling with these new changes, but if you want to level up your aim and climb to an immortal aimer, a radiant aimer, do yourself a favor. Go check it out in the links down below for tons of in-depth guides. We have everything you possibly need. Check it out right now. But thank you so much for coming by. I love each and every one of you for coming here. That's all I got for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and I'll see you tomorrow.